Hi, welcome to another Wolf Makes how-to video. In this video we're going to look at the really basic stitches. We're going to look at knitting and purling. So to start, I've cast on a few stitches and I've just knitted a couple of rows. So what we can see here is the lumps and the dips and the lumps, and if we look at the other side we can see the reverse. So let's start with the basic. I'm going to start with a knit stitch. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going in the front of the stitch and crossing our needle behind. We're taking our working yarn anti-clockwise. We're coming through to the front to pick up this loop. This is the stitch that we've just knit. And then we pull the stitch off. Okay, I'll show you again. Go through the front loop, anti-clockwise round, push through to pick up the stitch, and then pull off. Okay, in, around, out, and off. Now, the little thing about how I'm holding my yarn, this creates the tension, so this determines how tight or loose your knitting is. So I'm creating that tension by holding the yarn tight, in this case in my right hand. So this way is English knitting, also known as flicking. It's not the fastest in the world, but it seems to be the way that most people were taught. Okay. Now, if we take our stitches that we've just knit and look on the other side, we can see that these bumps here, these are the loops of the stitches that we knit through. So these are the lumps of the stitches from the row below. Okay, and if we just pull this open a little bit, we can see these little V's are the fronts of the stitches that we've just knit. So I can keep going. Knitting through the rest of my row. Okay, so when I've finished my row, I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to start knitting the other way. So I'm going to do exactly the same. So I'm keeping the tension in my right hand and I'm just gently nudging the stitches up the needle with my left. Okay, and we can see that this is the row behind, and then this stitch is going to become a bump on the back side. Okay, get some more yarn there. And if we're looking at this, we're pushing the yarn off the back of the right hand needle, and that's what creates the bump. So, as I'm saying, this is English style knitting. There is another way of doing this where you hold it in your left hand, and this is known as continental. So we're going to do it exactly the same way, in through the back, but now instead of having to flick, we can just scoop up the stitch and push it off. Okay, so this is continental knitting, and this is a lot faster. I don't quite gel with this way of knitting. I learned how to do it so I can do colour work, so I can have one colour in this finger and one colour in this finger. Oh, I've lost my tension now. But it's not a natural way of knitting for me. I much prefer the English method. So this stitch, just knitting the front side, the right side, and then knitting the wrong side. This is called garter stitch. So if you see garter stitch in a pattern, this is what we're doing. If we want to do something called stockinette stitch, which is often what you'll see in jumpers, that needs a purl. Okay, so we're going to purl this next row. So your knit stitch went in like this. Your purl stitch is going in like this. So we're still going through the front loop. Your knit stitch goes left to right. Your purl stitch goes right to left. And we're going to start with the yarn in front. Okay. So again, we're going anti-clockwise. And this time, our loop is going out the back, and the bump from our stitch below is coming to the front. Okay. So we're going in from right to left, anti-clockwise loop, pull off at the back. And again, I've got my working yarn tensioned through my fingers, and I'm using my right hand just to nudge these stitches up. So all this time with this stitch, the working yarn starts at the front of the piece. Okay, again, this is English style. I can get my yarn tangled up, sorry. I can move it into this hand, and this is the one I really don't like. Okay, so I'm bringing my yarn in front, which means this index finger needs to be at the front. I'm going left to right, I'm flicking round, and I'm coming out. Flicking round, and coming out. This is the one that I don't practice so much, so it's not so natural. So I'd encourage you to have a go both ways. See which way you enjoy most? Okay, and already you can see that it's changed. We're starting to get a flat piece of material created. I'm going to knit this row. Okay, and again you can see this flat piece of material starting to come out. Okay, and because I want all my bumps on this side and my flat V's on this side, I'm going to purl this way. Get my needles in the right place. So there you go. That's our two basic stitches. Knit stitch and purl stitch. Knitting the right side and the wrong side gives you the garter stitch, and knitting the right side and purling the wrong side gives you a stockinette stitch. Of course, if you reverse it and you purl the right side and knit the wrong side, you get a reverse stockinette, which is where you just get all the bumps but none of the dips that you get from garter. So the next video in this series is going to be looking at combining knit stitches and purl stitches within the same row, and the first stitch we'll be looking at is the rib stitch.